Welcome to 360 Wellness. I'm your host, Andrea Barrett. Over the last 13 months, our health and wellness have definitely been top of mind. Never before have we had such conversation about our immune health and also about the healthcare system. When I say wellness, I'm not just talking about what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're supplementing with, or how much exercise you're getting. But we'll get into the pandemic pounds in a later date. I'm talking about wellness. Total wellness. Wellness in your health, in your professional life, in your personal life, in your finances, in your relationships, and in your community. Wellness. 360 Wellness. Joining us today is our very first guest. It's Mr. Dwight Townsend, CEO of GoMedix Health. Stay tuned. Welcome back to 360 Wellness. I'm your host, Andrea Barrett, and I'm delighted to introduce you to our very first guest, Mr. Dwight Townsend, CEO of GoMedix Health. Hi, Dwight.
Hi, Andrea. How are you? Nice to
Good.
be
So,
here.
Dwight, tell us, what does wellness mean to you?
Well, wellness means different thing to different people, and I think wellness, to me personally, means that I am well enough and healthy enough to do the things that I enjoy, to play basketball with my son, to have a walk without pain, chronic pains, to enjoy activities, whether social or physical activities, free of pain, and having the choice to do that whenever I like. So it means different things to different people, but really, I'm right now, especially in the context of the pandemic. Wellness to me means I'm corona free. Knock on wood.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's get right into this. So, the pandemic. Here we are. It's been 13 months. Tell us about your business, what you do, and how we can support you in terms of what you're doing for the community in relation to COVID 19.
Great. Well, GoMedix Health was started in 2018, and it was really start. It started when my mom had a stroke, and I had 5 sick days at work. I was a busy working professional at the time, and as you know, 5 sick days doesn't really go far. If your kids get sick, if you need to take your parents to the doctor, if you break a leg, what have you. My mom had a stroke, and really within the space of 2 weeks, she had over 10 appointments. So those sick days were really dwindling really quickly. And oftentimes you have to make the choice between what day you can take off, when do you save those days. And I really wished I had a service that would be able to pick up my mom, take her to the doctor, and give me a full report. Unfortunately, there wasn't one, so I created one. So GoMedix House was really born out of that experience. And from then, what we essentially is a patient transfer service. We dubbed ourselves Uber Health. Really, the difference is instead of getting John Doe or Jane Doe, we send you a nurse, we send you a PSW to really pick you up and take you literally from home, door to door service or bedside to bedside service back to your healthcare appointment or to your healthcare provider.
Okay, so I can totally relate. So I call myself a caregiver. So there were days, and as caregivers, there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of burnout. And having the ability to reach out for some help to a company that can help with transportation or to an organization that can support. But I can relate. I know what it's like when you have to go to work and you have to get your mom to a doctor's appointment and you have to get your dad to his medical appointment. So it sounds like the company that you have offers an alternative to people who need to get their parents or their loved ones to and from different appointments, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so now we realize the pandemic is disproportionately affecting our community, and I've noticed there are pop up vaccination clinics happening all over the city. But I see that there is a barrier. There are people who can't get to these communities or can't get to these vaccination centers. What are you suggesting, and how can we reach out to you?
Well, our service really exploded. Unfortunately, Corona is just this pandemic in general has just been really devastating to really everyone. If you've never seen how people and process and things and the economy are all interconnected, you certainly see it during the pandemic. And one of the things that is really impacted people is the ability to just for basic transportation. So our company has really gotten a lot of business since the pandemic because personally, if you're COVID positive or you have COVID symptoms, getting out of the general population has been great. So our service has been contracted by many social service organizations, municipalities, and just individuals trying to get to a doctor's appointment, trying to get to a COVID test, trying to get to an isolation center, trying to get vaccination. So if people are concerned about just not being on the bus, not being in the public sphere, having to get to a medical appointment, GoMedics Health is a really great choice for that. And on top of that, you really get escorted with a healthcare professional, i.e., a PSW, an RPN, or even a nurse, depending on how severe of a chaperone or your medical conditions might be. So it's really a great service.
Okay, so now tell us about that. Why did you create a company that offers a chaperone service? So it's one thing to offer transportation. Do your staff wait for people once they're taken to the vaccination clinic or to their medical professional? And why did you choose to have a medical professional as a chaperone?
I think it's a great value add. When you think of, going to the doctors or just going to the doctor's office, oftentimes if you go to the doctors, there's a lot of advocacy sometimes that is needed. You get an appointment, you get to the appointment, and you're waiting 3 hours. And if you get up and ask the reception, well, I'm waiting for 3 hours, what's going on? Where am I on the list? It often becomes confrontational. Or if you ask for things out of the norm, it becomes problematic. So having somebody there to chaperone or to escort you, really, you partner with that person as a partner or as an advocate in your healthcare or the healthcare that you expect to get. Also, the big value add to that is you, you get there's a big difference between having Jane Doe and a nurse or a PSW or a healthcare professional. It's a value add in that anything can happen to you during transit. For example, we had a gentleman that we transported last week who had a seizure in transit. And luckily, the person escorting the gentleman was a nurse. We do an intake whenever somebody calls to say, they need to go to the doctor. So we need to know, how sick are you? What is your symptoms? What is the purpose of your visit? How stable are you to transport?
Mm-hmm.
And we did an intake, and this gentleman was very stable. He never told us any history of a seizure or mental health issue. And in transit, we found out that the person had mental health challenges and had a seizure. And luckily for us, we had a nurse that was transporting this individual who knew exactly what to do in those situations. So I think it's an amazing value add. And I personally feel better if I were calling a service to transport my mom or my dad, knowing that it's a regulated healthcare professional doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great value add.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And congratulations on the success of your company. Okay, so I have a question about vaccination clinics, which are popping up, which I think is great. So if somebody calls GoMedics Health and they need their loved one transported to a vaccination clinic, is your staff waiting with them? Are they just dropping them off? How does that whole thing work?
So we have wait and return service, and we have people who just needs a ride to the vaccination center, and that's it. We have people with chronic diseases, people with different stages of diabetes who really need that support. We have people who are just completing chemo or different type of treatments, and depending on the severity of how ill the person is, we ask, is this a wait and return service or this person just need to be dropped off? So we offer both services.
Okay, that makes sense. So one question that people are talking about a lot is how the Black community is disproportionately impacted. What are your thoughts on why racialized community, the Black community, marginalized community seems to be having a harder time with when it comes to COVID-19? Why, in your opinion, have we been disproportionately affected?
I think a few things. I think, first of all, culturally, the Black community is very diverse. And within that diversity, we have different health beliefs. We're Caribbeans, we're people from continental Africa, there's francophone um, Black people. So the community is so diverse, and within that diversity, people believe different things, and in those beliefs there comes different practices. So that's one. The other thing is, and that's most important, we have a lot of racialized and Black people that are on the front lines. These
Yeah,
are your nurses, these are your PSWs, these are your social workers, these are your support workers. So we have a increased level of exposure to COVID-19,
agreed.
being on the front lines. So I think that's what also some of those reasons are some of the major reasons why you find that Black people are disproportionately affected. And thirdly, I think it's also a matter of trust. The narratives that is coming out of um, COVID-19, whether it's about vaccination, whether it's about testing, whether it's about results, whether about even the validity of COVID-19 itself, is very diverse. So the trust issue for Black people within the community, we have not had a solid history of trust. History has not been kind to us with respect to the healthcare system or the larger broader Canadian institutions. So there's systemic discrimination and
Hmm.
discriminatory practice that's often part and parcel of these institutions. And so, because of these trust issues or these inherent problems within the systems, we don't often reap the benefits of the great healthcare system that the Canadian system is often touted to be. So among those things, I think definitely those are some of the reasons why we're disproportionately affected.
Okay, and so you see this as different in other communities. So let's look at the South Asian community or other communities. You don't think, based on your experience, that they've had the same issues that we've had?
I think it's a fallacy. I think there's definitely issues within every community, and I'm not South Asian. I'm not part of that community, so I can't speak to any type of lived experience of that. But what I can say, I think some of the issues I would suspect would be the same as it relates to trust. I don't know to what degree that community really um, trust the broader healthcare systems, or what are some of their specific cultural and intercultural challenges would be. But I think there's still people of color. And I think within that context, right across the board, they're going to experience various levels of racism or racialization that's going to put them on the margins. And so, in that reality, I think there would be disproportionate rates within those community, maybe not equal to, but certainly not comparative to the larger population or the general population. There's also disproportionate rates in those communities as well.
Right, understood. And then when we take a look at what's going on in broader society, we can see parts of Ontario or certain parts of the city which have been disproportionately affected, which tend to have more racialized groups in those areas. You mentioned healthcare workers or PSWs or RNs or RPNs. I can definitely relate to that. When I just look at my own family, we have a lot of people in healthcare. I could probably count 6 or 7 aunts alone that are either working in long-term care facilities or working in hospitals. And when you go visit them or you pick them up from work pre-pandemic, it is a lot of the nurses are women of color or men of color. So we are more represented on the front lines. I absolutely agree when it comes to healthcare. And as we're seeing in a lot of essential service workers, well, across the country, we tend to be disproportionately impacted. So it is my hope that we, get a handle of this as soon as we can and come up with proper solutions. Either solutions that can help get us vaccinated at a faster rate, or provide options that get people transported to pop-up vaccine clinics at a faster rate, or just being able to support our frontline workers, our students, our professionals to get us in the best shape that we can. Before we go to break, I wanted to ask you another question about wellness. So our show is called 360 Wellness. Can you give us some examples of what self-care means to you and how you practice self-care? We know that right now everyone is having an extremely difficult time. We're not getting enough sleep. Our diet is all out of whack. We're not exercising as well or as much as we used to. And what it means to practice self-care means different things to different people, and during the pandemic has changed. Can you give us some tips on what you do to practice self-care?
For me, there isn't any magic formula to self-care. I think you just do what you like, do what you enjoy doing. If it's sleeping in 1 day a week or sleeping in an extra hour, if it's going for a walk, if it's playing a video game, if it's track, if it's sports, especially being isolated and people are or in quarantine, the city being locked down. I think it's just finding those small nuggets of joy that you enjoy. Oftentimes, people think you need to go on a vacation, you need to be out of your home. People put too many parameters on simple things, and I think self care to me personally is just doing the very simple things that you like. Do more of what you enjoy doing, and that's what I've been doing over this period of the city being locked down and while I was in quarantine and self isolation, and I really find um, those to be quite enjoyable. Corona certainly slowed things down for a lot of people, and if it's one thing we have right now, it's time. So
Mm.
my suggestion or my thoughts on that is just use your time wisely. Do that thing that you've always wanted to do, and do things that you enjoy doing.
Okay, good. All right. So we have all of this time. What is that one thing that you are now doing now that you weren't doing before?
One thing I'm doing now is actually I'm spending a lot more time on my business. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm spending a lot of time making connection with people and organizations I didn't have time for. I'm learning a new language. Um,
Which
I'm
one?
learning a new language, French.
Oh,
I'm trying to
merci.
improve
Ah,
on my French. Yeah, bonjour. I have to say bonjour.
good for
I'm
you.
working
That's
on my
good.
accent.
I just want to stop you
I'm
there. I think that's
working on my
fantastic
accent.
that you're learning a new language, that you are keeping yourself busy and that you are keeping your brain busy. That is so important, and I hope that everyone watching and listening is will take this as an example. Use this time to improve yourself. Dwight is learning a new language. That is beautiful. So I would encourage everyone to pick up a new skill. Carry on, Dwight. What else are you doing with your time?
I'm really into Jamaican coffee right now, and I've been fortunate to have gotten like a few boxes recently. And so every morning I make it a routine to have some Blue Mountain Jamaican coffee,
Mm.
sit on my patio and just down have some downtime, plan my day, and just have more time with nature. I love camping, I love hiking, and I've been doing a lot more of that. And I try to find at least an hour in the day to go walking. Where I live, there's a beautiful trail close by, so I find an hour every day on my lunch hour to either go running or go biking for at least an hour and then come back to my
Okay, this
work.
sounds good. So you're definitely keeping active. I want to hear more about this, but we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back on 360 Wellness.
This is not your regular show. It is an interactive section powered by the masses.
Why you go for Nigeria? You wake up, you go come. Ask yourself now. I don't go Nigeria.
Where we discuss issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. Slices of humor to keep you entertained and thrilled. We are the GPKM Street Talk Team.
Welcome back to 360 Wellness. I'm your host, Andrea Barrett, and our special guest today is Dwight Townsend, CEO of GoMedics Health. Dwight, can you give us your website? Let everyone know how they can get a hold of you when they're ready to book a transportation for their loved one or for themselves.
Sure. So my website is gomedicshealth.ca. So GOMEDICS health, HEALTH.ca.
Okay, and you liken yourself to the Uber of healthcare. When I need to get my mom to a vaccination clinic or I need to get her to a medical visit, someone from your team will come and pick her up alongside a chaperone from the healthcare industry, and they will take her to her trip, correct?
Absolutely. So you give us a call, we take a brief intake, see, how old is your mom? Does she need a wheelchair? Does she have any type of mobile aids? Is she stable enough to travel? Where were you going to? How long will it take? We send out a chaperone to get her. When we come to get your mom, you'll get a text confirmation that we have arrived. When we depart, you'll get a text to see that we have left. And when we arrive at the location, you'll also get a text that we have arrived, and we return your parent a chaperone to accompany your loved one to and from the journey, from that destination.
Good. This sounds great, and I'm sure you've been very busy during the pandemic, and this is such a needed and helpful service to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and taking care of our loved one. So before we went to break, you talked about fitness and what you're doing to keep yourself active. So tell us some more. So you said you start hiking.
So I've started hiking. I grew up in Jamaica, and I grew up in rural Jamaica. So I didn't like it at the time, but as I get older, it's something I really come to appreciate. So I really enjoy hiking. I like track and field. So my sport, or my track, my sport of choice is really the 1500 and long distance. So in my older years, like, really, I'm really trying to get back to that. So I hike at least or run at least every day for an hour through the woods, and just enjoy finding a new trail. And it's been fantastic.
Okay, good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about food. So I'm going to take you through a lightning round. I'm going to ask you some questions. Just give me the first answer that comes out of your mouth. So when I say, Dwight, tell me about your comfort food. What is it?
Comfort food is, well, could that be a drink?
Sure, it can be a drink.
Comfort food is really coffee. It's really coffee. It's not the healthiest, but it's honest.
Okay, who says coffee isn't healthy? That's something we'll get into on a future show. It usually depends on what you're putting in your coffee. Coffee in and of itself is not a bad thing. I have been known to drink a lot of coffee myself. It all depends on what you put inside.
And that makes
the
it
coffee.
healthy. And that makes it healthy.
Yeah. It all depends on what's inside. Okay, so tell us about breakfast. What is a typical power breakfast for this power CEO?
Breakfast for me is, I love eggs. I love that traditional breakfast. I like eggs. I love omelets with avocado, one slice of bread, not two.
Hardo bread?
Hardo bread.
Hardo
bread is it. I'm trying to wean myself off of that now, but I'm praying about that.
Yeah.
So power breakfast, definitely an omelet every morning with avocado and my coffee.
Okay, and supplementation. Are you pro supplements or against supplements?
Not really against, but I like natural stuff. So whatever you're taking as supplements, I like to get that naturally from foods. I think supplements can be very lazy. Why not just get it in the food that you eat? So I prefer that route.
Okay, and so busy CEO, what do you do during the day just to take time out for yourself, just to recharge your batteries? Well, what is your wellness, your self-care tip for yourself?
For me, it's just really running. I will be in the middle of the day, and if I start my day at like 6:30, and by 12 o'clock, I've pretty much had it, and I will take a run for about an hour and a half, and it's like my day has just reset my day, and come back at about 1:30, and go till about 7 o'clock, and that's been really amazing. It kind of just breaks up my day, because if you just go from 6:30 to 5, or 7, it's a long day. So taking a break in the middle of that, having a run, it does wonders for me.
Okay, All right, so I want to go back to the pandemic for a moment. So we clearly know there is no playbook, and our government officials are doing the best they can. If you had any advice
Mhm.
for the Ministry of Health, what would you advise them to do to get us out of this any quicker than we currently are?
Well, I think we have some amazing people who are or who's at the leadership of this and who are doing
Mm-hmm.
well. One of the things that I'd like to say about leadership, though, I'd like to see more racialized people in leadership. And I think the fact that the pandemic has disproportionately affected racialized people proves that there's a lot of racialized people that are in the healthcare system on the front lines. They're very knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
They're also very educated. They know the system. However, I don't think the leadership has really reflected their presence.
Okay, now why is
I-
that? Let me interrupt you there. Why do you think we are missing? Because I've always said we need a seat at the table, and then there are people who say we need to have our own table. Why do you think that we are not a part of the decisions that are currently going on?
Um, well, I'm not opposed to having our own table, but until then, or in tandem with that, we need a seat at the table. And I think the reason we need a seat at the table because we all benefit from the one system. We live in Canada. The Canadian healthcare system has been touted to be one of the best, if not the best, in the
Yep,
world. And
agreed.
we need certainly we can have our own table, but we need a seat at that current table. And I find you have a lot of people who um, they go in marginalized, racialized communities who are doing extremely bad in and out of the pandemic, and none of these people look like you or live in those communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you really want to affect some change, instead of applauds to the city, the premier, and the prime minister who have all contributed, or have made monetary contribution to various initiatives with respect to racialized communities, but post pandemic, that money is going to run out, and we need sustainable changes. And I think part of that sustainable changes is to make sure that there's representation at those tables. People who look like you, people who understand the issue of distrust, people who understand because they live in marginalized communities, people who understand those social conditions in which you live and expect to be happy and expect to grow and expect to prosper under in worse of conditions and worse situations. So I think those lived experience really will help to inform people and processes at the leadership level. And I think that really needs to be reflected post pandemic to bring some of these frontline people who have been um, tested positive for COVID and disproportionately affected into the leadership for it to look different and for things to for us to have different outcomes.
Okay, good. So I want to ask you something. So I heard on the way here that there was a city in Ontario that, in a certain postal code, that was encouraging the Black and racialized residents to get to the front of the line to go and get tested before everyone else. And there are members in that community that are upset that it is the postal code is sort of being discriminated or split by race. What are your thoughts on that? Should a certain population, a certain group, maybe a gender or ethnic group, have a preferential seat at the table when it comes to getting their vaccine?
I don't really think it's a preferential seat. First of all, I never heard. I didn't hear that story. But my thoughts on that is, I don't think in that situation, I don't think it's a preferential seat. I think they're priorities, and if the priority is to vaccinate the elderly or people who are disproportionately affected, or people who have the greatest potential to affect and infect other people or the greater population, I think they're called priority for a reason. So I don't necessarily think that decision is really along racial lines. It's just that the people who are disproportionately affected um, are based. I mean, those are the it's based on race. So if a Black person is deemed to be a priority based on their postal code, or a South Asian person is deemed to be a priority based on their postal code, I don't think it's a racial thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a health priority, and the health priority could falls along racial, age, I don't think it's political. It can fall along those lines.
Okay, so that being said, I've also noticed and heard that the vaccine clinics and some pharmacies that are offering the vaccinations are not in the areas where they're most needed. Do you think that is a political decision, or is that simply representing the demographics of the neighborhood?
Well, I don't think the vaccine should be based on where they're most needed. I think the most needed narrative is recent. I mean, before the vaccine was the vaccine, and everybody's going to get a turn, and everybody's going to get a vaccine. But as the need increases, the priority shifted, and so you're going to have vaccine in neighborhoods or in postal code that are not so-called the hotspots. Do they have a right to be there? Absolutely, because everybody who wants a vaccine should get vaccinated. I think the greater question or issue is now that the priority has shifted, we don't have enough, and it's now an issue of availability, demand, and supply. Who gets it? And so I don't necessarily think it's in a matter of I don't think it's a matter of appropriateness. It's a matter of priority.
Right. And you make sense. It is a matter of priorities. What do we do? I guess it's a societal question. What are we going to do if we don't have enough vaccines for the entire population? How do we prioritize? How do we determine who gets it and who doesn't get it and what the frequency is? And that's not exactly a question I'm asking you to answer unless you want to comment on it, but as a society, we're going to have to address that question. I know in hospitals, as the ICU is getting full, they are going into a triage state where they're asking themselves that very question: who becomes a priority?
So I think that's a really loaded question, and I think that's something that we are all um, trying to answer. My comment on that is, fortunately for us, I don't think we are at that point yet. I know definitely in the United States, they have come to that point in various states, and luckily, it's not my understanding is that we're not there yet in Canada. But in terms of priority, it makes sense if communities, if neighborhoods, if um, people need the vaccine by sense of by in a sense of priority, whether it's you're a senior, whether it's children. The priority is based on the population or that group at the time. And you have to remember, if somebody's getting vaccinated, it's good for you. Because the likelihood of you getting COVID-19 from that person that is now vaccinated has substantially diminished. So I think getting somebody else a vaccine is probably one of those really unselfish thing that you can do honestly and with the greatest level of um, I guess freedom and integrity. But at the same time, it's just recognizing that somebody else is getting a vaccine is not necessarily a stripe or against you, because it's protection for you as well.
Exactly. Getting vaccinated reduces transmission. If we all play our part and do our role, we stay home, we isolate as much as we can, we wash our hands, we're wearing our mask, we're doing our role and our part in society in reducing transmission. So now that we are all at home, the pandemic is ongoing. Tell me what was your biggest challenge when the pandemic first started? So I remember back in March. So think back to March 2020 when you had to move everything home, start working from home, kids were at home, everyone's at home. What was your biggest obstacle, your biggest challenge?
For me, and I suspect for most people, the onset of the pandemic, I don't really think it really started sinking in till probably around 3 to 6 months in, because
Really?
the narrative was still changing. I remember telling family who wanted to visit, oh, it's just people with underlying conditions. It's really not that serious. I work in a healthcare environment, and I was hearing that from physicians. So, I mean, I don't know if it's being in that environment really desensitized me to that, but I really wasn't that concerned. The concern grew over time, when the city started went under its first lockdown. Your friends started dying, or people who have died. then you really started to say like, wow, this is really something. This is really serious. But if you really were to look back on the onset, um, it was an announcement. It was somewhat shocking, but a lot of people
Yeah.
were just trying to make sense of what it is. Um, so really, I don't think the first 3 to 6 months was really that difficult. I think right now everyone is experiencing, pandemic fatigue. You
Yeah.
you get into this level of complacency where you just want to go back to normal, or you forget your mask, or you think it's okay without the mask. So that the narrative, the feeling, the emotions, they continue to change and to evolve.
Yeah, I can relate somewhat. I do remember March, clearly remember being in the living room and it felt like the world had just stopped. So I remember that moment and the phone just kept ringing and there was lots to do and lots to react and you needed to figure out what you're doing, what your family's doing, and what this all means. But I can agree with what you're saying that it took some time to figure out what really does this mean for me. You talked about underlying health conditions, and at the time we focused a lot on seniors and elderly, and we saw the
Right.
catastrophe
Right.
that happened in long-term care. And now
Right.
here we are 13 months later, and we can see that different age groups, different demographics are being impacted, and we need to still be keep our
Vigilant.
guard up and make sure that we're doing all we can to protect ourselves, that we can stay well and protect our loved ones. So
Absolutely.
practicing good hygiene, washing your
Absolutely.
hands, wearing your mask, keeping 6 feet away from everyone, only going outside if you need to go outside. But of course, getting your exercise, doing what you need to do, getting enough sleep, sleep and stress. Let's talk about sleep and stress. At the beginning, it felt like no one was getting enough sleep and our stress was off the charts. What are you doing to manage your stress? How do you manage your stress? And what advice do you have for our viewers?
I think in terms of stress, I think there's different stressors for different people. For me, being at home was not great simply because my
Was it
entire
stressful?
family, it was stressful because my entire family is at home. You're
Yeah.
hearing dad, you're hearing Dwight, you're hearing every 2 seconds. So, you really learn to appreciate the commute and the peace you get
Ah,
in the chaos of a commute. So I think for me, that was a really big thing, was to figure out how do I work from home with my son being here and with my wife being here and other family members, because she's also working and we all have different needs. So you have to make ground rules to say, I'm here but I'm not here, or I'm going to be in a meeting, don't knock on my door, or don't come in here, I'm on a live broadcast. So those things really took some time. I mean, they seem small, but they were really stressful to figure out because you simply just didn't figure them out before. You have a routine where everyone is out of the house by 8 o'clock, and you come home at different time. And if I get home before I start dinner, and vice versa, and it works. And now everybody's in the same place. The other thing I'd like to add as well, I think the way we look at work has changed for sure, and I think it's also changed for the better. I've always said there's absolutely no reason why everybody needs to be at work for 8:30 or 9 o'clock, or everybody needs to be on the DVP, or like why. So,
why?
um, so now I think now that the pandemic has proven that you can almost work from anywhere. I think it has brought back a level of autonomy and trust, even between employers and employees. And oftentimes, working from home, you work harder because I've seen it with my wife. She's at that computer 8 o'clock every morning, and she doesn't leave till sometimes 6 o'clock. And if she was downtown, she would be commuting. She would have to leave to get that 4:30 go train. So you work harder, you work longer hours, and it certainly can be more stressful if you're not disciplined to say, these are my work hours, and this is the parameters in which I choose to perform. I sign on and I sign off. So it can be. I think those arrangements were a learning curve, and I think for a lot of employers and employees, I think it was a huge adjustment.
Yeah, I agree. I think employers and employees have learned, and even entrepreneurs like yourself, I'm sure you've learn to adjust your time and to do like a work-life balance. And I know that you've been very busy, and I want to congratulate you on your success. I see these GoMedics health cars just zipping across the city, you transporting clients and patients to their medical appointments. So I wanted to congratulate you and wish you well on all that you do. If you can tell us again what your website is and how people can get a hold of you when they're ready to do a booking to have one of their loved ones transported to a vaccination clinic or to see their medical professional.
Sure. So the website again is www.gomedicshealth.ca, GOMEDICS health, HEALTH.ca. So you can get a hold of us and book directly from the website. And you can also give us a call at 941-2424, 9416-941-2424, 416-941-2424. So we work with a lot of social service organizations who really need this service for their client. Organization like, if you do any type of social services and you have clients, the clients need to get to that appointment. The clients need to get somewhere. We work directly with the organization to make sure those hard to reach clients actually get to where they need to get to.
I think this is a great service.
Are really critical.
Yeah, this is a great service. You're at home with your child, but your older sibling or your mother or father has to get to the pop-up clinic. You call GoMedics Health, you get them in a ride, they have a chaperone, someone from the healthcare industry taking care of them. I think this is a great service. So again, want to congratulate you on your success. You're doing a great thing for our society and you're helping our community. We're very proud of you. And again, thank you for being our guest today. And I wanted to thank everyone for joining us and tuning in to 360 Wellness. Please, let's keep the conversation going. Follow us on social media, the GBKM Network. Visit our website, download our app. We're on the iPhone and we are on Android. And remember, 360 Wellness, it's not just about what you're eating and drinking and how much exercise you're getting. We want to empower you to be better, stronger, and healthier. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
This is not your regular show. It is an interactive section powered by the masses.
Why you go to Nigeria? You wake up, you go come. I just said now. I don't go to Nigeria.
Where we discuss issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. Slices of humor to keep you entertained and thrilled. We are the GBKM Street Talk Team.